Welcome to Kev's Travel Stories. Each week I'll be bringing you a story from the weird and wonderful world of travel, a world that can change the way you see life and love and even the way we find meaning. Places that are iconic and sometimes surprising and even terrifying. So sit back and enjoy while we go on a magical mystery tour together. Welcome to the Top Travel Destinations. I'm joined by my special guest, Sarah Slattery, the travel expert, and she's going to share her top 3 or 4 tips on how to get the most out of a holiday. Now, there is no one better than Sarah that I can imagine. She's traveled the world. Her website is packed with information and deals, and there'll be a link to that in the fact sheet. And what she doesn't know about travel is not worth knowing. She's feted on the media and appears on lots of radio shows. And we're very lucky to have her here sharing her top tips. So we're going to get the cream from the top. Sarah, you're so welcome.
Thanks, Kevin. That's a fabulous introduction there. Thank you very much.
You've traveled a lot and you've traveled with your families. What would be, for someone listening who maybe is nervous about traveling or still, gets a little bit stressed about traveling, what would be your top tip to start us off?
Well, if you're stressed and nervous, it probably sounds pretty obvious, but I suppose just do as much planning as you can, whether it's reading blogs before you go on the top things to do, checking out things like how much a transfer costs from the airport to your hotel, so you know you're not going to be fleeced when you arrive, and give yourself a broad idea of planning, because one thing that happens, particularly if it's a sun holiday, once you get there, lying by the pool on that lounger, you get a bit lazy. Our life is so busy that when we get there, you just kind of want to flake out and relax. And what can happen is the week can just fly by, and before you know it, you're home and you'll say, well, what did you do on that trip? Well, didn't really do anything. We stayed at the pool for most of it. So I'd say try and plan a few different things to do in advance, whether that's booking a top restaurant, because, if you think of Dublin City, for instance, particularly with city breaks, if you want to get a really good restaurant on a Saturday night, you can't get it unless you've booked in advance. The same goes to city breaks when you're anywhere else. We all seem to think, oh yeah, we'll just go into such and such restaurant, but you forget it's a city and the locals will want to go to the best places too. So it could be something as simple as booking a restaurant in advance. I personally always like to do something I can't do at home when I go to a destination.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, it's just something that I've always tried to do. And there's so many great websites now, because years ago you had to kind of go and source out these little things yourself and Google to your heart's content. Now you have like Viator, you have Get Your Guide, you have attraction tickets, you have all of these big companies that organise excursions. Like Viator is owned by TripAdvisor, so you're pretty much in safe hands there. And they'll have amalgamated all the top excursions and all the top local guides into one website. So you go on and you put in Barcelona and you'll see 10 different types of activities you can do in Barcelona in one spot.
And we will put the links to those in our fact sheet. Give us an example of some of the unique things that you've done when you've gone away for a week's city break or holiday break. The Vespa one piqued my interest.
Yes, in Rome, a lot of people will do a hop on, hop off bus tour, for instance, but there's so many kind of cool ways to see a place, really. It is nice and everything, but those earphones in 10 different languages and you don't really know what's going on half the time. I don't personally see the appeal. If you look kind of each city, or most cities will have their own little thing, whether it's tuk-tuk, a tuk-tuk tour in Lisbon is a brilliant place to do a tuk-tuk tour. But Rome, it has to be a Vespa tour. It's just fantastic. I've actually 2 really good recommendations for Rome. But the first one is a Vespa tour. I think it's from kids age 8 and upwards. You've got the guide who's driving it, and then one person sits behind, and then you've got a sidecar. So it's perfect for couples. Or if you have families, you're going to need 2 of them. Now, families of 5, it's not really going to work because But for a couple or a family of 4, it's absolutely, we did it with the kids and they loved it. Now, it's expensive. It's not cheap. That was 2-3 years ago when we did it. They still talk about it. It's one of those experiences you can't put a price on.
What was the unique value of that?
It's just kind of driving around on the back of a Vespa. To them, it's like a motorbike. It was just really cool. And going around the little tiny side streets that You couldn't go on an open top bus tour, for instance, you know. And similarly with a tuk-tuk, they'll bring you down these little side roads. It's just really cool.
And can you stop off for a
Oh, yeah.
gelato or a
Absolutely.
limone?
Yeah, depending on the time of day. If you do the morning one, you'll get a coffee and a croissant. In the afternoon, you'll stop for a gelato. And they'll bring you to all the top sites. They'll give you a little, like a normal guided tour on the way as well. Another great one in Rome is a golf cart tour. There's a lovely Irish guy, Sean, he's lovely guy, and he set up a golf cart tour for his mum who was 80 and she couldn't walk the streets of Rome, and he was living there. He set it up himself and it's huge now. So if you have an elderly person or an infirm, it's like a golf buggy basically, and again you go around Rome in these. So there's lots of kind of unique ways to see cities like that as well.
That is absolutely brilliant. And the best way is to go on to a website such as the ones that you've mentioned, like Viator or those
Get Your
other
Guide.
ones.
Another one I did that was really interesting is City Unscripted, it's called. So they're in a lot of cities now. So say, for instance, you want a guided tour, but you know you're not really into history or art, or maybe you want food, or you book it, you pay a private tour. Say, for instance, it's €200 for a family or something. And then they send you an email and you fill in, well, I like this, I'm not interested in this, I'm into photography, I want good photography spots. I would usually say the Instagram spots. You know, I'm into quirky things, unusual things that happen in the city, storytelling, whereas I'm not into art galleries or I'm not into museums. And then they'll curate the itinerary for you. That's another really good one. And then something really out of your comfort zone in South Africa. The first time I ever paraglided off Signal Hill. I mean,
What?
yeah, it was mental, like, but I can't believe I did it. And sure, now then I did it again the following year in Austria off the top of Hohe Salva Mountain. Yeah, I got real into it then. So try something. I'm not saying you need to go shark cage diving in South Africa or something, but you know what I mean? Like something that you can't do here, that you come back, there's a specific memory of the trip. Like for us, it'll be the Vespa one, you know, as a family, that'll be that.
That's really wonderful. And so there's two really good ideas. I thought it was very interesting to get the real unique flavor of a city as well. And guides can be fantastic for that. And they're not that expensive.
No.
When I've been in Vietnam recently, the guide was amazing and took me to places I'd never even have thought of.
Yeah. I always think as well, it's a really good tip to book it on the first day, the morning you arrive. You get your bearings. You also get recommendations. They'll say, go to this restaurant. They'll stop in a cool
yes.
coffee spot or whatever. So I would say book it for the morning you arrive. And one great thing, if you're on a sun holiday, for instance, and you want to book a boat trip, is an ideal one to do in the middle of a sun holiday. Most of these tours, you can usually cancel 24 hours before. So, you know, don't be afraid of it. You can book it. Most of them have free cancellation. So I would say it's always better to have some sort of plan, and it gets you up off that lounger or up out of your
Yes.
comfort zone to do things. You're there for experiences as well as relaxation at the end of the day.
Yes, and my tour guide, May, in Saigon just a few weeks ago, she brought us to this extraordinary little street food restaurant, which cost nothing. And it was where the GIs used to hang out. And there
Wow.
was a real vibe. And the woman made her living, not only by making this food from her own little kitchen, but she parked scooters, because scooters are huge in Saigon. You were really not a tourist.
Yeah.
And I think that's so invaluable.
Absolutely. You'd never get that wandering on your own. No,
No.
not a chance. So,
No.
yeah, that's what's brilliant. And another thing I always go back to is price. You know, people always look at the first price they see. But those kind of experience, they might say, I'm not booking that. That's €200. But you might have paid like €1,000 for your flights or your accommodation. Like at the end of the day, that's going to be the thing you're going to talk about. You're not going to be
Yes.
talking about the flight to get you there or the transfer in a taxi or whatever.
The
It's going to
hotel room.
No, the experiences are actually what you should be really spending your money on, because that's what you're going to remember in 5 years' time.
And your kids as well.
Yeah.
That comes down to a very interesting point, which you were making about false savings as part of your holiday. Now, I thought that was a great philosophy. Tell us a little bit about that as one of your travel tips.
Yeah, we tend to go on to Ryanair website and we see flights for $29.99 and we think, great, I booked that. But like it could be 6 o'clock in the morning and there might be an Aer Lingus flight at 9 o'clock. The Aer Lingus flight might be €50, but that might include 10 kilo check baggage. You could probably get a bus or somebody to drop you to the airport. You could probably have your breakfast at home before you leave. You know, if you're on a 6 o'clock flight, you may not sleep the night before because you have to be up at that horrible 4 a.m. start. You usually pay silly amount for breakfast in the airport. You probably have to get a taxi. We don't tend to think outside the box. And then the cheaper fare won't include a 10 kilo check bag either. we get a bit impulsive and we just go, oh yeah, that's only $29.99. Transfers are another one I often say. Like sometimes you'll get a package holiday. I'm a big supporter of travel agents and tour operators. But a lot of the time, these package holidays where your transfers are included in the cost, your check bags are included on the cost, you have the security of having a rep or whatever around, or somebody 24-hour assistance if you need it. That can all really add up. I know I'm focusing a lot on Irish prices here, but if you, for instance, are going to the Canary Islands in July, a checked 20-kilo bag is €110 with Aer Lingus. So if you have a bag included in the cost of your package, if you have a transfer included, it all adds up. And so don't just look at the first price you see. Really try and compare like with like. Think of what are you going to add on. I mean, plus, you get a 9 o'clock flight, you're going to arrive so much more refreshed. You'll actually get much more out of the day than those 6 a.m. starts that you just haven't slept, basically, for the night before.
That's so wonderful. And I'm taking the kids away this weekend and we're doing the 6 o'clock flight because they wanted to use the Aer Lingus lounge. But there you go. We'll have fun. So that, I think, has given me a lot of thought. Sarah, you're so good. Thank you so much for sharing the tips of the travel expert. All Sarah's details will be on the accompanying website and below this podcast. And it's going to help me travel. And I hope all our listeners will take great comfort from your advice.
Thanks so much.
And use that Vespa trip. That sounds like a no-brainer.
Thanks a million, Kevin.